And we are live. Hello there, guys. I am here with a special interview with one of the people who was actually in this documentary, one of the Ghostheads and big Ghostbusters fans, as am I, but I'm not in the documentary. I'm here with Lex the Robot, or Alex Newborn. Hello, Alex, and how are you? Thank you for joining me here.
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've I follow your YouTube channel for quite a while, but I think it was only sometime last year that I subscribed because I've been following your your Ghostbusters videos and your
Yes.
other ones as well to do with Star Wars.
Occasionally, yes. I've done a few things Star Wars related. Mainly, I'm working right now on converting a Starspeeder 3000 toy into a Starspeeder 1000, which is actually something since I visited the theme park in like 1991. I wanted there to be a white and blue Starspeeder 3000 toy, and the 1000 that they brought out for the sequel ride is about the closest you can get. So I'm slowly dismantling one and changing details, and then I'll give it a coat of paint and do all that. So yeah, occasionally I do Star Wars. Mostly I do Ghostbusters. A lot of my subscribers numbers went up uh, at the beginning of this year. I started doing a video series just called My Ghostbusters Pet Peeves. And it starts
Yeah.
off with me saying, uh, there's only one S in Mother Puss Bucket. You know, it got on my nerves so bad that I kept seeing that typo over and over and over. And then that led to another one and another one. And those videos got the most views of anything Ghostbusters related that I had done. And so I kept doing them, kept doing them. I did one the other day, and I think it was number 107. So I've done a
I
whole
think it was the
series.
one to do with the calculator that falls and goes across the floor in the library.
Yes, yes. That's nearby here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. That's the most recent one that I've done, is about the PC4. I don't think it fell out and hit the floor and skittered. I think that sound effect was added in post. I
Yeah.
think they said Dan paused too long before he said his line. What can we do? And somebody threw a sound effect in there, and it became a gag. But in the very next shot, it's back on. It's still, dangling safety pin to Egon's coat. So
Okay, so first of all, you're a part of the Alabama Ghostbusters franchise.
yes, yes.
Um, so where, sort of, when did the Alabama franchise start up, and when did you become a part of it?
I joined in about 2011. Now, I'm not sure the exact numbers. I know it's at least a decade now that they've been doing it. But they started it off, and I loved Ghostbusters in the 80s, and then I just sort of fell away from it for a while. I've told this story before. It's like uh, Ghostbusters 84, I was 14. Ghostbusters 2, 89, I was 19. And then after college is marriage, divorce, marriage, kid. So suddenly it's like, oh, all that stuff kind of takes a little back seat for a while. But in 2011, for my birthday, my wife gave me the Mattel PKE meter. And boy, it just reawakened all these. Yep, there you go. It just reawakened all of these desires I had. Now, I'd done a costume in the 80s, but it was very fanciful. It was, I'll put this gray jumpsuit on and I'll do the best I can with styrofoam to make a backpack. And that was it. My old PKE meter was actually made from an Atari paddle controller from the 80s.
Yeah.
With a hairbrush handle stuck in it. So having that Mattel PKE meter, I was like, wow, this is like movie accurate. I wonder if that's something else that I could do. And the Alabama Ghostbusters really played into my decision to make a movie accurate costume, because my wife and I had gone out of town for a funeral. And as we were driving back, I was telling her, I said, there's this auction that ends today for a patch and a set of elbow pads and a belt.
Yeah.
And if I bid on this auction, then I'm committed. That's the point of no return. There's no stopping me after that. And she was very encouraging, but was saying, how much is it going to cost? And I'm like, I'm going to do it as cheaply as possible. Famous last words. And so then we're literally, coming into our hometown and about to go pick up my youngest, Zach, from school, and an ectomobile passes me in traffic. And I'm just like, that's a sign, so I didn't know who it was. I didn't know who had one. And I got on the Alabama Ghostbusters website, and Brock was the president at the time, Brock Parker, and he almost immediately messaged me back, and he goes, it's not one of ours, but we know who it is. You can look him up on the GB Fans website under this name. And so I contacted, and it was a guy here in town named Brandon Ballantyne. And so that kind of set me on my path. And then the eerie thing is, you've asked me to do this podcast today, and today is the 3rd anniversary of when we wrecked that ectomobile in 2015. So yeah, he doesn't have an ectomobile anymore, but that was the car that made me want to do a movie accurate costume. And I spent a couple of years putting a proton pack together and all that stuff. So
you got all the parts and the electronics to make your own pack and stuff?
Yes. I think my light kit was all GB Fans. And then the boys, my 2 sons have proton packs. Theirs were the Matty throwers. And then they did a kit that would interface a Matty thrower and let it control pack lights. So they've got little 80% scale Studio Creations vacuform packs with a sponge face light kit controlled by a Matty wand. And I think he's done a newer version of that actually does sound in the pack, which one of the Florence Ghostbusters here with me, one of the Alabama Ghostbusters, Wade Haddock, I think he put that in the pack he built for his wife, Monica. So I need to update theirs and get better systems with sound for them. So don't tell them that. So,
are you doing anything Ghostbusters related, like this Halloween?
This Halloween, actually, I was thinking about putting on just the blue lab coat and showing this off, because this is a piece I never ever thought I would get.
The sniffer.
Yeah. So this one was a guy in Oklahoma, a friend of mine, Patrick Hurd, messaged me and he says, I'm thinking about selling my Ghostbusters collection. Is there anything you're interested in? And he said he had a sniffer. And I'm like, yeah, I'm interested in that. And it was just the body. So I've had to find this piece and fabricate this piece. And a guy found that piece for me. And then I put the tube on it. And I had that part 3D printed. And the labels are from Mexico, and I put a new button in it, and I put an analog gauge in it, and I put the strap on it myself. So yeah, that was a project from most of the summer, was working on the sniffer. And I'm like, well, now what do I do with it? I've got to put on the blue lab coat and do that for Halloween.
But I think it can be kind of fun to like replicate one of the scenes and actually use it,
Exactly. And I've got almost all of the gear from that commercial. So I've got the sniffer, I've got the correct camera that Bill Murray's carrying and the correct case, and I've got the PKE meter. And I found recently, hang on, it's here somewhere. I might have to stand up for a second. There we go. I've got the correct model of headphones like Harold Ramis is wearing. I haven't cut the cords off of them yet to turn them into the stethoscope. And in fact, a couple of mornings, I got up and found that my wife had plugged this into her tablet so she wouldn't wake me in the middle of the night playing a game. So if I do render those inoperative, she's going to be mad at me. So, but yeah, I've got almost all the gear. And I've got a plaster cast of Bill Murray's face, a plaster cast of Dan Aykroyd's face. Somewhere in the back of my brain, I'm thinking I'm going to get 3 mannequins and put the blue lab coats on them and display all the gear. I don't know where I'm going to have space to do that, but that's sort of a kind of idea that I'd like to do.
You have like a collection room with all your Ghostbuster stuff in. Or?
I do, and it looks very similar to the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just boxes stacked on boxes and a narrow pathway to walk between them. So, but then this also was a new project that I did over the summer, and that also was something Patrick had begun, but it was resin copies of all the Greeblies that go on here, and I was actually had been collecting since 2011. She'll get that. The correct resistor and knob and the correct vector plating, and I bought one of these, and actually I put electronics in it, which Patrick had not done. And then the big one was he had begun but not finished the pedal. And this one needs some TLC at the moment because I haven't quite figured out how to do the spongy piece here. But I even put electronics in this half of it so that I can turn on that little red light right there. There we go. And put the ribbon cable back in. So those are two projects that I've just finished up doing. So yeah, it's like, do I want to wear the trap for Halloween, or do I want to carry the sniffer for Halloween, or what? Yeah, it becomes an embarrassment of riches trying to choose which costume piece to put on sometimes.
When did the documentary take place?
I didn't quite catch that. What did you say?
Sorry. The documentary, The Ghosthead, it was out in 2016.
Yes.
So when did this come about, and when did you do your parts for it?
I had previously been interviewed like in text by a guy in Italy, GB Max Massimo, and then Brendan Mertens, the director of Ghosthead, had seen that, and I mentioned in it that my oldest son, in the Italian interview, that my oldest son had cerebral palsy. Mm-hmm. And Brendan really sought me out for Ghostheads because he wanted to bring that aspect of it and bring it into the public eye, because he has a family member with cerebral palsy, and he wanted to shine some attention on that. And so I really think it was, now I spoke equally about both sons, and in the edit they kind of skewed more towards the oldest son. But yeah, I really feel like a lot of people responded to that, and I would get friend requests or messages on social media from people that are like, wow, that was so inspiring. You know, I have a family member that is special needs and stuff like that. So it's been a really positive aspect of everything, of him and putting his story out there. So yeah, we got a big response. People in my country, people in other countries, messaging us and saying how much that had affected them. And occasionally I'll get people that I know that stumble on it by accident. I had a girl that I'd gone to high school with who messaged me one day on social media, and she was like, I just saw Ghostheads, and wow, that's, you know, you and your family, that's such an inspiring story, and it touched me so much. So yeah, but he actually got into Ghostbusters second. Zach got into Ghostbusters first. And then it wasn't until I bought, Zach was wearing the little, you know, Ruby's Halloween Ghostbusters costume when he's like 9 years old, and then he outgrew it. And I'm like, I found a real flight suit for him for half what that thing cost. So I bought it, and I brought it home, and I'm thinking it's going to be an okay fit on Zach, and it was too long. And then we tried it on Orion, and it fit perfect. And I could see this sort of like, I want this, you know, and I'm like, do you want me to go back and buy the other 20 small? And he's like, yes. So then I'm like, oh man, now I'm having to buy everything in 3. I'm having to buy triplicates of everything I find at that point. But Zach was already doing the Ghostbusters thing for a year or two, and we'd go someplace and Orion would be Harry Potter, or Orion would be Captain America. So then it was about the 3rd year of it, probably about 2013, when Orion started dressing as a Ghostbuster as well. And then Zach, I mean, still, I teasingly asked him the other day, I said, so what are you going as for Halloween this year? And he just shot me this look like, what do you think I'm going as? You know, I'm going to be a Ghostbuster again. So
yeah, that's cool. Are you doing anything with your group for the 35th anniversary next year?
I would love to do the thing that's in California. It's going to be a budget thing, whether I can swing it. I just had to spend a lot of money putting a tooth in my mouth. I wrote a thing for publication, and it's going to be an upcoming book. Hopefully, it'll be out by the end of the year. Called Somewhere Beyond the Heavens: Exploring Battlestar Galactica. And so I wrote 2 essays for this, and I was waiting on my advance to come in, and I had a piece of Ghostbusters equipment that I already knew I was going to buy with that money when that money came in. And literally, I got the check, and within 2 days, my back molar broke. And I had to have a root canal and a crown put in, and I wound up paying my dentist 4 times what I had made on the book. You know, it's like, going. I had money. I had something I was going to buy with that money. So, yeah, if I can swing it, if I can, put it on a credit card, I might go to the Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd event in California. I've never been to California. I'd like to go. I've got friends that live in California. I'd love to visit a couple of the theme parks while I'm out there. I'd like to see Universal Studios. And the original Disneyland. I've only ever been to Disney World in Florida, so I've never been to Disneyland in California. Even though I've written professionally about rides that, were created at Disneyland and been paid for it, I've never set foot in the place. So,
my plan for the 35th anniversary is that I'm going to do a sort of gameplay video of the 2009 video game.
Oh, excellent. Zach plays that game all the time. I'm horrible at video games. I don't have the hand-eye coordination for it or something, but he's got the gene. So I've heard most of the game. I've heard the dialogue over and over, but I've never actually played it myself. So,
right, this is a really good game.
I was very happy that everybody came back. I thought one cast member in particular sounded a little lackluster in his vocal performance, but we won't dwell on that. But everybody else, it was a hoot to see that they'd gotten everybody, even like, Walter Peck being back and little things like that. I got a kick out of. So,
what was I going to say then?
What about you? What's you told me you were working on your first outfit. What else you got planned? Proton Pack at some point?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm not really good at making stuff, so it might be the commission build.
Okay.
But because they're quite a lot of money as well.
I'll tell you this, because I didn't think I was any good at stuff like that, and little by little, I found myself tackling new skills like cutting aluminum, working with epoxy putty, working with wet sanding. I'd never done wet sanding before. And then to the electronics of doing the soldering on some pieces. And, it's like each new skill increased my confidence in my abilities. And it's to the point now that I look at something like, a totally unfinished piece and go, yeah, I can add everything to that. That's not a problem. So, and working on the...
In yours, do you have like the music on it as well? And
it does. My Proton Pack does have a switch that you can throw, and it'll play the Ray Parker Jr. song.
Yeah.
But I've seen people that do it really fancy, and like they can plug their Bluetooth into their Proton Pack and play any song they can download. So. But little things like this, it's like, okay, well, I can just paint it if I want to, or I could do this, or I could do this, or I could wire it if I wanted to. I know how to put a battery in there now. So things like that, it's like each time you successfully do something yourself, then it snowballs. It grows into new projects for you. So never be afraid to do the work yourself.
Yeah, sorry. I do like the Matty trap.
Right.
I haven't got it, but I'd like to get that one at some point.
It's a nice piece. Have you seen the Spirit Halloween trap?
Yeah.
Which lacks the pedal and everything. Now that one's been very popular. Of course, everybody's buying the Spirit stuff because it's so cheap, and everybody's making it their own. They're all like, I painted mine this way, and I painted mine and weathered mine, and I did this to mine, and I added a pedal to mine, and I'm like, wow, there's so many now variations on the Spirit stuff. It's kind of incredible how people are customizing it, making it their own like that. But yeah, the Matty trap for me, somebody said, well, now that you've built this trap with all these movie accurate parts, are you going to sell the Matty? And I'm like, no, because the door is open on the Matty and it makes the sound effect and you can pull the cartridge out and everything. So yeah, it'll be sort of like, well, this is the one I'll use for this scene, and the Matty's the one I'll use for that scene, and whatever. So
Is that trap there a part of your uniform?
yeah, a belt for it, and it's got a belt hanger as well. The belt's in the plate for the belt is in the other room, and I still have to adjust the strap on that and put the rivet in the strap in the right place. So I haven't quite done that. And some of these parts are actually well, one's fallen off here, but some of these knobs are actually just held on with carpet tape at the moment. So I haven't yet permanently attached two of the knobs. So
On DB fans, they've been looking for the key fobs for the uniform, and it seems to be that there's only just one of those in stock.
oh, really?
Yeah, out of the 3 versions that you can get.
It seems like they ought to be fairly easy to make oneself. I've never cut leather, so I don't know. But yeah, like when I did the goggles in 2011, I actually went to the fabric store and bought the elastic myself and found the matching snaps and did all that myself, even to of it. You know, it was just a little rubber thing, and you put the snap in it, and you put the other half on top of it, and you hammered it down. It was like a handmade approach to a lot of those pieces. But I would think making the fobs ought to be within sort of a similar skill set. I don't have the tools for it, but yeah, it seems like something one could do themselves if they can find the hardware, the clamps and everything, the lobster claw clamp and what have you. That ought to be doable. The thing I'm hoping that GB Fans gets back in stock is the shock mount for the bumper on the because they had those custom made, and I was like, maybe not. And when Brandon got his pack from Vinny, replacing the pack that was destroyed in the wreck, it had the GB Fans shock mount on it. And as soon as I saw one in person, I was like, oh, I missed the boat. I should have definitely gotten one of those because it looks so. Mine's just a resin copy that's spray painted silver, and it looks okay up until you see it next to the real metal, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should have gotten that. Now it's out of stock. So. Aha, yes. Is that that looks like the Playmobil version?
No, it's the what's it called?
Jada?
Jada, yeah, that's it.
Yes. Now I haven't actually taken mine out of the box yet, so that's why I didn't quite recognize it. Yeah.
This one, I think this is the 24 scale.
And then there's a smaller one too, right?
You get one smaller than that as well.
Yeah. See, I bought that one off eBay because I could never find it in stores. I keep finding the little one everywhere, but I can't find the big one in person, so I had to pay a little extra for shipping on it.
I had to get that one on Amazon, but I'm sure that they sold them in the Walmart in America.
Walmart, and I think it's supposed to be at Target as well. So
yeah.
Speaking of, no, it wasn't Amazon. It was Big Bad Toy Store has got the Diamond Select Toys Marshmallow variant of Egon up for pre-order. I just placed my pre-order for that a little while ago. So it doesn't ship till April, but I figure might as well get on the list. So
yeah. So it's hard for, I guess, any fan to talk about this, but what would be... Oh, sorry, first up, have you seen the 2016 film?
I still have not seen that film. And my defense is that I still haven't seen Extreme Ghostbusters either. So if for some reason, Extreme Ghostbusters never appealed to me. The one episode I've seen is the one with Peter and Ray and Winston. Yeah. So I guess unless it's the 4 characters that I grew up with on the movies and the real Ghostbusters, it just never holds my interest. I was glad that certain things happened because of the 2016 movie. It seems like a lot of merchandise came out that was really good. They brought back Ecto Cooler. Hello. Things like that were, nice to see back. But the film itself, I mean, my nephews actually met, not Kristen Wiig. What's the other one? The one that everybody loves on Saturday Night Live.
Kate McKinnon.
Yes, he's met her. He works at a restaurant in New York, and so he's actually been her waiter like 3 or 4 times, and has had long conversations with her and everything. So, but I have not seen the film yet, so I might. But I feel like somebody's got to balance the bell curve and be the one person that never saw it. So somebody has to round out the numbers statistically. So,
How long ago since you went to New York and did your pilgrimage?
I did. I did go to New York in 2014, which was actually before my nephew moved there. So I have not gone to that yet. I have not gone back, rather, since he's been living there. But it was a lot of fun. My friend Adam, that I do improv comedy with, and his wife Rachel, Adam Neal, they had moved to New York, and she spent about a year there, and he spent about 8 months there. And while they were there, I went and crashed on their sofa one night, and we went to as many Ghostbusters filming locations as we could possibly find, and we did a lot. Then I took pictures and everything, and came back home and immediately started making my list of, if I ever go back, I still need to do this and this and this and this and this. You know, so.
Did you go to Hook and Ladder?
Pardon?
Did you go to Hook and Ladder?
I don't think so. One of the things on the last day that we were going to do didn't pan out because the City Hall was covered in scaffolding. And also on the last day, we'd done the exterior of the New York Public Library. And then on the last day, we were going to go back and go inside. And we got all the way inside and up to the 3rd floor. And there's a sign that says the room we wanted to go to, the room where Egon's under the table and, you know, listening to the table. That room was closed for renovation for like the next 2 years or something. So that's finally reopened. City Hall's out from under scaffolding. They did an extensive rehab on the firehouse. It's now back out from under scaffolding. Of course, it was not under scaffolding when we went. Yeah, so it's like, I don't think you can ever have the one perfect. Oh, and when we were at Columbia University, they had these tents set up. So when you're trying to get the shot from over the statue's shoulders, you got all these like people and tents right there in the background. So yeah, I don't know that you can ever get a single trip where you got everything ticked off the list perfectly. And the last day, I wanted to go to Queens, to where they had the Flushing Meadows, where they had the World's Fair in like 1964, I think. And then that also was a filming location for Men in Black. And it's mentioned in a deleted scene from Ghostbusters. So I was like, oh, I'm a Disney fan, I'm a Ghostbusters fan, I'm a Men in Black fan. I've got to go there. And we just kind of decided to crash. And we weren't sure that we could get all the way out to Queens because they didn't have a car while they were living there. We weren't sure we could get all the way to Queens by train and get back in time to get me on my flight home. So we just kind of crashed and sat around the apartment for the last couple of hours.
I went to New York this year, back in May.
Say it one more time for me.
I went back in May of this year.
Oh, in May? Was that your first trip, or?
My first trip ever to New York, and for me, it was the trip of a lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It changes you. You become like a different person after you've been in the city yourself for a little while. So
kind of like you become a part of the movie yourself.
Yeah, exactly. There were moments where I felt like I'm seeing things from the character's point of view when I stand here where they stood. Oh, that's what's over there. Yeah, that kind of thing happened to me a lot. I remember one time it was the Havemeyer Hall, which in the movie is called Weaver Hall.
I was stood right outside there, and I had to insert a picture afterwards of like what the picture where Weaver Hall was written up after the movie. So
I walked up the ramp and in the door, and I'm like, whoa, I just walked inside the movie. You know, it was this bizarre feeling of connecting with it. And something else happened in 2014 for me that was very similar, because the Alabama Ghostbusters did a simulcast, a shadow cast of the movie at a convention. And so it was playing on the screen and we were acting it out. And I wound up playing Bill Murray. I would have thought they would have cast me as Dan Aykroyd, but they had me play Bill Murray. And there were 2 or 3 moments in that.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite?
Oh, see, at different times in my life, I would have different answers. Murray was the early favorite. I think as I grow older, I look a little more like Dan Aykroyd now. So, but yeah, I've met Ernie. I love Harold. So yeah, it's kind of a toss up there. But we did this show with the movie being projected, and there were these eerie little moments that just stick in my memory. One was Robert Benjamin Lawrence was playing Egon, and he could not see the screen behind him, but where I was standing as Vinkman, I could, and I see him, and he turns to me and he goes, like exactly when Harold on the screen goes to Bill Murray. And I'm like, that was so perfectly in sync. You know, he has no idea how badly, how well he nailed that timing. And then the other one was at the end, and a buddy of mine, Ronnie Marion, was playing Winston. And he did the I love this town. And when he clapped his hands, the shaving foam that we all had used, well, I only had like one little dollop of shaving foam on my head because I was Bill Murray. But everybody else was covered in shaving foam. And when he clapped his hands together, the shaving foam just like particleized in the projector's cone, like the light coming from the projector to project it on the screen. And I was like, wow, that was like the most 4D thing I think I've ever seen. Like this guy playing that guy, and it all just worked so well. So we had a blast doing that. So yeah, I had the trip to New York and the shadow cast both in the 30th anniversary of the movie were these moments where I felt like I've just stepped into the screen. You know, I've just crossed the fourth wall in the other direction. I've broken the fourth wall going in. Sometimes they break the fourth wall coming out at you, but I just jumped in the screen a little bit there.
Babe, I didn't even know this, but I went into the what would have been in the movie Manhattan Museum of Art.
Yes.
And we were asking like where the room was, where Vigo was, and it looked so much different. I didn't know whether or not it was actually in the right room because it looked different to what it was back then.
I think it was a set. I think the room where Vigo was a set, but the skylight that you see Liberty crash through is based on the rotunda in the center of the real museum. So I did take some pictures in the rotunda. Now the lobby was used for some shots, and the exterior was used. So yeah, up to a certain point, it's like, well, this outside was in the movie, this was in the movie, but then you get into the Hollywood of it, and there's rooms in the museum that were built on a soundstage that didn't actually exist in the real location. And I think in the matte painting that shows Liberty like smashing in the rotunda, that they had to move it forward and to the left because in the real world it's in the center and it's sort of lower than the surrounding architecture. So they kind of brought it up and forward and put a matching one on this side, and none of that's real. You only see it in matte paintings. If you saw a satellite photo of the real building, it's not there.
Also,
and then if you're at the museum, did you know you're like a 17-second walk to the Men in Black headquarters from Men in Black?
I didn't know that at the time.
Right behind you and on your right. So yeah, you can see the museum in shots of Men in Black.
Mm-hmm. We went to the museum and we found out from one of the guards there that up on the wall was a stain of what one of the mood slime blowers went off by accident.
Oh wow, cool!
And it was like a stain of pink on the wall.
Oh, that's neat. I wish I had asked him about that. So I'll have to, if I go back, I'll have to ask him. So show me the mood slime stain.
Yeah. It was just I think I got it on my video actually. You might have to check it out at some point. But
all right, deal.
Yeah, on the wall, just after that we enter it, because I talk a bit outside about because with the steps where Sigourney walks up to where she goes up to the inside of the building to get her baby back at the end.
Yep. Yeah. And then once you get inside, of course, they shot all those things in the pre 9/11 world, and we're visiting them in the post 9/11 world. And now everywhere in New York, they got these big metal detectors. So you have to go through the metal detectors when you get inside the museum, and those weren't there in 1989.
Yeah.
So there are little differences. Some of the places that we visited, I'm like, man, I'm getting the exact angle from my reference photo, but there's a tree here that wasn't there 30 years ago, and it's blocking my shot. I have to move 10 feet to the right to get as close to the movie angle as I can sometimes.
I was really happy though to see the lions that were still there.
I loved the lions. I loved that.
Patience and fortitude.
Exactly.
Exactly. What else? The light pillars on either side of the museum, they're still there.
Right.
And I don't know.
I read something after my trip that there's actually 2 more lions that were sculpted by the same sculptor as Patience and Fortitude, except they don't have manes, so they're lionesses.
Yeah.
But they are outside of a different library or museum or something in New York City. I'm like, well, I'll have to add that to it's not technically Ghostbusters related, but I'd like to see them, so yeah. Keeping in with the theme. I've got a neat set of cold cast Patience and Fortitude bookends that I bought after I came back from the trip in 2014 that unfortunately I keep managing to drop and chip the corners off of. So I regretfully don't have them in perfect condition, but they're a nice little. They're almost to scale to like some Mattel figures, almost. They're in the ballpark of being to scale with some of the action figures. So I keep thinking, what can I build a big set of steps out of and put these lions there on either side? So
I got like a miniature version of one of the lions, or could be both of them. There's just one miniature version. It was like a marble.
Oh, cool!
Marble.
Cool. Yeah, that would be neat.
Like that in my sort of main collection of Ghostbusters figures and stuff.
Oh, you have to send me a picture of that. Yeah, Patience is the one that's in Ghostbusters, and then I think Fortitude is the one that the lion pops out of in The Wiz. If you've ever seen The Wiz with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and everything. Of course, that wasn't the real. They didn't shoot at the real location, but he's supposed to be that lion on the right. So, and then of course, if you're at the New York Public Library, right across the street, you've got the bank. You're never going to regret this, Ray.
I did a little clip coming out there. My brother-in-law who took me there, I said I wanted to do this clip where I come out of the door and say, what's the sign name now? You're not going to regret it, Ray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I did the same. And then I did a shot from what would be Egon's point of view, because the only prop that was small enough for me to bring in all my suitcase and luggage and everything was the little mini Casio calculator that Egon's calculating in that scene. And he does for your information, Ray, the interest rate alone is going to come to $95,000. For the first 5 years, it's going to come to $95,000. So I actually did that from Egon's point of view, trying to film and walk and work a calculator all at the same time. This is a very awkward video, but that was fun. And then I brought some action figures with me. So like outside the firehouse, I got down on the sidewalk on my belly, and I put the 3 guys in their blue lab coats with the Mattel figures with the real firehouse behind them. But I didn't have a lot of props or anything that I could carry. I got to the airport and Adam was like, "Where's your Proton Pack?" I'm like, "Alabama." I didn't bring it with me, so
it would have been quite a heavy thing to take that.
Yeah. Well, Ronnie, the guy that played Winston that I was just talking about, he used to live in New York, and he had a story about taking his Proton Pack to the firehouse so that a visiting friend, I think it was, could take a picture. And so then he's carrying the Proton back home, and somebody saw a man with dark skin carrying this big black backpack into the subway, and they called the cops thinking it was a bomber. And so he got like pulled off of the train by the police, and they're like, "Now what is this?" And he was like, "Up there is a building that was used in a movie, and this is from the movie." And they're like, "Do you have any evidence on you?" He's like, "It's Ghostbusters." How do you not know what it is?
Yeah.
And then I want to say I've heard a similar story where Ernie Hudson said the same thing happened to him, that like he got like pulled off of an airplane or something because he had his Proton Pack with him. So yeah. Oh, me, the post 9/11 world, like I'm saying, everybody's afraid of everything. So.
Me and my mum, because I live with my mum, we're planning to watch Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on Halloween night.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's a good one. I always like to watch Ghostbusters 2 on New Year's Eve, just for the scene where he comes down, he rappels down into the library and says, Happy New Year. Matter of fact, when I got my copy of Ghostbusters on DVD in 1999, I didn't have a DVD player. Mm-hmm. And the buddy from college that brought me this, he was, where's the disc? Oh, the disc is in this computer. He brought me this as a surprise, and I'm like, but I don't have a DVD player, and he had his DVD player out in his car. Well, he walks into our house, and I'm sitting there watching Ghostbusters 2 on VHS, and he looks at my wife like, did you tell him? And she's like, he just watches stuff, you know. So, but he gave me that on New Year's Eve of 1999, which is the year that the disc came out. And then that started me. That was immediately after that, I bought a player and started making my collection of DVD movies. And of course, now you're on the Blu-ray and all that. And I have a player, but my son's accidentally pulled it off the shelf and broke it. So now we have to use like the video game that plays Blu-rays, whatever system it is in there. We have to play our Blu-rays on our video game system. So I need to replace my Blu-ray player, but I'd also like to buy a Laserdisc player because I bought Ghostbusters on Laserdisc, even though I didn't have a system for it. So it kind of harkens back to having a DVD and no player. Now I've got a Laserdisc and no player. So.
Because on the Ghostbusters 2 Blu-ray, there's some pretty cool deleted scenes on it.
Yeah, it definitely was one of those situations. This is a guy I'd done some commercials for and different stuff like that. But I've got Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on VHS, widescreen VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. And I'm sure, you know, in a couple of years, there'll be some new format that comes out. We'll have to buy it all again anyway. But then and my albums are over here. My vinyl albums. So I've got them on vinyl. I've got them on cassette. I think I've got Ghostbusters 1 on soundtrack on CD, but not Ghostbusters 2. And then I need to get. Was there a Ghostbusters 2 on Laserdisc? Surely there was. I'm just not certain. I'm not certain. So yeah, but the Laserdisc has one deleted scene that was never released on anything else. So even though I've got it as a file off of YouTube that somebody had posted, I'm like, well, I'd like to get this and see what other bonus content the Laserdisc had. I just haven't yet pulled the trigger and bought a player for it. So
the Summer of '89 videos, they were great.
That was one of my first big series that I did on YouTube, and it was one of those situations where I assumed all that stuff was out there somewhere. And so I started the series and I said, I'm just going to do a couple of these. And people were like, oh my God, nobody's seen that for however many, like 20 something years at that point. Cause I think that was around 2011 that I was doing that, or 2012. And they're like, nobody's seen this stuff since 1989. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll digitize some more and I'll shoot. And so just like it became this 5-hour long playlist of clips that I had recorded that summer because I was, you know, just home. You know, I was going to college. I didn't have a job. If I wasn't in class, I would just walk in my room, turn on the TV. If something Ghostbusters was related, I would hit record, you know.
Yeah.
But then it led me to these weird moments of I actually was in Nashville, Tennessee, to meet Ernie Hudson for the first time. So yeah, that would be 2012. And I'm talking shop with another Ghostbuster. And we're talking about this and talking about that. And he goes, where do I know you from? And I'm like, well, I have done some TV commercials, but I don't think they would have played in the Tennessee area. I think our viewership was just like Alabama, a little bit of Mississippi. And all of a sudden he goes, Summer of '89. I'm like, yes, that is me. Yeah. So he's like, oh, I got to shake your hand. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'm like, I never expected to be recognized for something like that. So,
So,
but he,
what of the actors have you met?
let's see, in order, the first Ghostbuster I ever met was the guy that wore Tracy the Gorilla on the Ghostbusters TV series from the 70s. So many, many years ago, I met Bob Burns. But then from the actual Ghostbusters 1984 and 1989, I think the first one I met in person was Robin Shelby, that played Slimer in Ghostbusters 2, followed by Ernie Hudson within a year's time. Then I met Dan Aykroyd in 2014, which I was a little bit leery of because when I was in high school, I had a dream that I met Dan Aykroyd and then somebody shot him. And in the dream, I was trying to get his dying autograph on a bit like that. Like I was such a ghoul that I was trying to get the last Dan Aykroyd autograph ever. So I really had some mixed feelings about like, should I really go try to get this guy's autograph? That might just be too, self-serving. But I met Aykroyd, and then
Is Crystal Head vodka?
Say it one more time.
Did you ever get his Crystal Head vodka?
I did. You have to buy his vodka to see his autograph, and I don't drink. So here I am, a lifelong teetotaler, having to buy vodka and taking my 11-year-old son into a liquor store with me to get Dan Aykroyd's autograph. So yeah, but that's how canny of a businessman he is. It's like, well, if you want my autograph, you got to buy a $50 bottle of vodka. It's like, okay, I guess I'm buying vodka today.
Did you go there in uniform to meet him, or?
I started not to. I started not to take the uniform because it was very cold outside, and I didn't want to load all this stuff in the car because to get there by 11 when the event started, we were having to leave before dawn, and it was January. It was very cold, and I just said, forget it. I'm not putting that stuff in the car. It won't impress Dan Aykroyd. He's seen better than what I've made. And at the last second, this voice in my head said, if you don't take it to an event where you meet Dan Aykroyd, what was the point in making it? I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess. So I load all this stuff in the freezing cold, and we drive down, and we get there, and I'm talking shop with some people like Charles Fincher and different folks, and I've got the post. I had a Life magazine that I already had Ernie Hudson sign. And I said, guys, do you think that I should have Dan Aykroyd sign this Life magazine, or should I have him sign my one sheet, which I left in the car? And like, go get the one sheet. And so I go back to the car, get the one sheet. I come back. Now, bear in mind, when we pulled up, the line was already wrapped around 5 buildings. And these guys were kind of close to the front. So I get back to the front with the poster, and I don't see anybody. I don't even see Zach. And Zach comes around the corner. I'm like, where did everybody go? And he goes, oh, they all went inside. And I'm like, go get with them. So he ducks under the police tape that they had. And I ducked as well as I could with a Proton Pack on my back. And so like a guy dressed as Elwood Blues lifts the tape high enough for me to get under. And we got just behind the other people dressed as Ghostbusters. So guess what I missed while I was gone to the car for the poster? Dan Aykroyd came outside and said, if you're dressed as a Blues Brother or a Ghostbuster, come to the front of the line. So that's how close I came. I almost didn't wear the uniform, and I almost wasn't there when he said that. So I just barely got in. So we were there, like we were in the first 15 minutes of people to get to see him that day when they opened the doors. And a guy that had been a caddy for him at a golf, this was in Mississippi. He was down there shooting a movie about the life of James Brown, who coincidentally was in Blues Brothers. So I always thought that was cool. And he had done a golf event the day before, and this guy had been his caddy. And so we'd been told outside, don't ask for a photograph. There's too many people in line. Don't try to have a bunch of stuff signed. Just get one thing signed and get your vodka signed. It's like, okay, cool. We understood the rules. Well, we're in line, and this guy who had caddied for him the day before comes in and said, I'm supposed to just get in the line and talk to him when I get there. I'm like, okay, cool, go ahead. And he gets between me and the other Ghostbusters. So I see all this group of Ghostbusters gets invited behind the table to pose for a group shot with Dan Aykroyd. And I'm like, oh, man, We missed out. This guy's in our way. And so that guy comes up, and Dan Aykroyd recognizes me and goes, no, I've got you a comp bottle of vodka. It's got this particular sticker on the bottom, and they'll know that you don't have to pay for that when you get to the register. I'm like, oh, man. And then I get up there, and he calls Zach Cadet and invites him behind the table. And I'm like taking a picture of Zach with Dan Aykroyd. And he goes, and Dad, hand your camera to somebody and you come back here too. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got a picture of just me and my son and Dan Aykroyd. You know, how cool is that? And I get outside and I call my wife and I said, well, mission accomplished. And she thought I meant that I had finally made it to Jackson. And I'm like, no, I've been in Jackson, met Dan Aykroyd, got his autograph, had my picture made with him, and I'm about to go to lunch with some people that I just met. You know, it's like this was the most productive 15 minutes. Thank God I wore that uniform. You know, so could have gone much worse if I had not done that.
Any others after Dan Aykroyd you met?
And then after Aykroyd, I went to well, the sad thing was, Zach had now met Ernie Hudson and had met Dan Aykroyd, and he said to me as we were driving home from meeting Aykroyd, I want to meet all the Ghostbusters. And I think it was like a month later, Harold Ramis passed away. And it's like, oh, he'll never get to meet all four. Even if we somehow find Bill Murray and get to meet Bill Murray, he can never have finished his goal of wanting to meet all four. But then a couple months later, I'm in New York City, and we staked out Annie Potts outside of a play that she was appearing in. So I got to meet Annie Potts. And if I've met other actors, I'm drawn. I've interacted with a lot of people online or different stuff, but I think that's the four that I've met in person. And I hope I'm not forgetting one and leaving somebody out.
Sigourney Weaver?
Say again?
Sigourney Weaver?
No, haven't met Sigourney. Although I have emailed her husband, Jim Simpson. He had directed Sigourney and Bill in a play about the aftermath of 9/11. And being a theatrical person, I found this email address and sent an email, and the person seeking more information about the play. And the response was her husband, Jim Simpson, who had directed them in it. So that was kind of neat. But I have not met her. I'm quickly going through a Rolodex in my brain of people and trying to figure out if I've just omitted one from my memory. This is that on the spot moment where you freeze and you blank on something. So it seems like there's got to be one more after Annie Potts, because that's like 4 years ago. Surely I've done something in the 4 years since.
Have you heard of the upcoming that documentary called Cleaning Up the Town, Remembering Ghostbusters?
I've heard of it, and I've watched with interest the progress reports. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I hope they actually complete it soon. But yeah, it's been in production for a really long time, I think. So I tried to make the light look better in here, and I think I made it look worse.
It's a Renault production. I think the two people who made it are actually from the UK.
Oh, cool.
And actually, it's like a I guess it's going to be like a time capsule in a way, because Harold Ramis is still on it.
Right. They interviewed people for many, many years. They've got Michael Gross and people like that. I was friends with Michael Gross, but I never met him in person. Trying to think of anybody else that I've met face to face.
One interview actually also on your Ghostbusters 2 Summer of '89. That was the only one interview I ever saw with Peter McNichol.
Right.
I don't think we've ever done any other interviews.
He the weird thing about that was, when they did the big coffee table book for Ghostbusters, the Ultimate Visual Guide.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
The guy that wrote that is his name is Dan Wallace. Dan Wallace and I have known each other so long that we used to write on paper and put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it and mail it to each other. We were pen pals before there was email, So when he got that book, he was not the original writer of it, but when he took over the project, he contacted me, and he'd already done, in 3 months' time, he had learned practically everything that I'd spent 30 years learning. So I was so jealous of how well he did it. But I was able to make little tiny contributions. And there was a specific quote by Peter McNichol that I'm like, oh yeah, it's on this Johnny Carson interview. And I went and found the tape among my summer of '89 clips on YouTube, and I watch it and I'm like, wait, it's not in there. And what it was, he had done like the same. He was talking about Carpathia, and he had used almost the same joke talking to Johnny Carson as he'd used in this really obscure Starlog magazine interview. And I'd seen them both around the same time in 1989, and I'd like fused the memory together. I'd like conflated the details, and it was so instructive to me as Dan was writing that book. And I would say, well, there's an anecdote that you might like. And he's like, can you find it for me and get me the exact wording for it? And I'd have to dive into my books and my videos and my records and make sure I got the exact wording and the source for him for publication. And I was like, wow, there were a lot of stories and things that I thought I knew. And then I found out I didn't know it as well as I thought I did. So there were the Peter McNichol quote, and there was one about a fountain that I thought they were talking about the fountain at Lincoln Center where Dana and Peter are talking. No, it was the fountain over at the main monument where Rick Moranis is talking to the horse. So I had all these little nuggets that I would have told you were gospel truth about Ghostbusters. And so there I was, like going back through and rereading magazines that I hadn't read in 20, 30 years and going, oh, I totally misremembered that. So it taught me a lot about the fallacy of human memory. And that's why normally now, if you see me make a claim on Facebook, I've probably spent the previous 20 minutes going and finding the book and looking at the book and making sure that I was typing exactly what it said in the book, because I almost stuck my foot in my mouth a couple of times when he was writing that book and I was making suggestions. So, and he very kindly put me in the thanks to, and he sent me a copy that he'd signed to Alex, the fifth Ghostbuster. I couldn't have done it without you. And I'm like, that is a lie, because he had done, being unfamiliar with Ghostbusters, he had amassed everything in that book so well in 3 months' time that I was like, well, what did I waste 30 years of my life devoted to this topic for if you can learn it all in, a quarter of a year? So.
Oh yeah, there's something I find quite funny that, of course, in Ghostbusters 2 you have Harris Yulin playing the judge,
right,
and Peter McNichol playing Janos Pohart in the same movie. Yeah, a couple of years afterwards, in the movie Bean,
right,
you have Peter McNichol and Harris Yulin playing his boss in the art business.
See, I feel like Peter McNichol's character in Ghostbusters 2 stayed in the art community, but he lost the accent and he changed his name after the events of Vigo and all that. And he tried to be a better person, and he got married and had a kid. And then he meets Mr. Bean, and oh man, it's worse than it ever. Somebody did a really neat one though. They took the painting of Vigo and put the Mr. Bean Whistler's mother face on the painting of Vigo. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But Harris Yulin is in a movie that Harold Ramis directed. I don't know if you've seen Multiplicity. I almost always, every February 2nd, I try to watch Groundhog Day, and it always makes me want to watch Multiplicity right after, because it's around the same time in Ramis's career. But it's Michael Keaton, Andy McDowell's in both, so I guess that's the connection. And Michael Keaton clones himself, and Harris Yulin is the doctor that does the cloning. So he's that's another time that he worked with Ramis. So, but yeah, and then Peter McNichol, the first movie I remember seeing him in was Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, I've heard of that one, but never seen it.
But aside from that, I can't think of very well. No, he's in Peter McNichol's in Addams Family as well. He's the camp counselor in Addams Family. So yeah, he's sort of one of those actors that is so different each time you see him, and it speaks to his talent. But it's like you don't see him anymore. You just see the character, and it's hard to realize, oh, that's all the same guy. So he's something of a chameleon, something of a character actor like that. what was there was some TV show that I spotted him in, and I would not have pegged him for being in that. So
Ally McBeal?
I never watched that one. You would think I would have, but I did not. I was not a big fan of that show. I liked
Because he was in that.
um, uh, the Ooga Chaka Baby. My nephew would watch that all the time. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen an episode of Ally McBeal. So
We'll have to finish soon, but I have a couple of questions in the way of like favorite scenes in the movies.
all right.
Being super fans, both you and I, and a lot of others probably watching this. This is gonna be a hard question if I put it down to just one scene. So I'll say, what would be your two favorite scenes from, at the moment, the first movie?
All right, from the first movie, favorite scenes. I tend to collect a lot of props from the library scene. So the first time the three guys are encountering a real ghost, and I tend to focus a lot on scenes at the firehouse though, so that's harder to say. But I'm going to say the first bust of Slimer at the hotel. So pretty much. From the Chinese, from the magnificent feast of the Chinese food through to we got one to the visit to the hotel to, straight into the montage. I mean, if you can call that a single scene, then yeah, from that to the end of the montage. Well, yeah, and Winston's introduced at the end of the montage, so that's like the heart of the film for me. And once you study it, you realize what a masterpiece of editing it is, because a lot of that stuff was never intended to go in the montage, and it was stuff they shot for other purposes, like the dream ghost sequence, or them talking to the reporters outside the Sedgwick, and all of that was intended to be its own scene. And they said, we don't need it where it is, but what if we use this line and this visual and this, and we pepper it all into the montage and give the montage more production value and more passage of time and all that. So yeah, I'd have to.
Your two would be the library and
I'm going to say the library
plus the
and
slime capture.
The hotel through to the end of the montage. So
I'll give you my two now then.
Right.
Mine would be like you said, the first one, the library. You know, when they're going through the library stacks with the PKE meter and you go on at the front.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And we see that big pile of books.
Symmetrical book stacking.
Yeah. And the bit when Ray, actually, I think it's Ray that says it. That says, "Do you smell something?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played a prank on a friend of mine one time with that scene. I've probably told this story before, but we were watching the movie and eating pizza, and he had a physiological reaction to the dairy in the pizza. And we were like, "Oh man, was that you? Did you do that?" And he's denying it. And we were right at that scene in the movie, and I rewound just enough. And I said, "Oh man, that was so bad. They probably can smell it on the TV set." And I hit play, and Dan Aykroyd goes, "Listen, do you smell something?" And the three of us just rolled around the floor laughing at that. So as if it had smell-o-vision in reverse had happened to it. Yeah, a lot of that scene was not intended to be shot. The only thing they set out to shoot that was in the script was the bookcase falling. So the symmetrical book stacking, Bill Murray playing with the slime, a lot of that dialogue in that scene was stuff that Ivan Reitman that morning said, we need more here. And we need more time to occur between them talking to the librarian upstairs and actually meeting the ghost downstairs. So they just sort of improvised a lot of that stuff on set for the first time. All right, what's your second scene that you like?
Yeah, probably the climax when with Gozer, and she then the whole Marshmallow Man finale.
Yes.
That would
that's the payoff of the film. Yeah, I can easily see that stuff. One thing that's interesting was because I finally got a replacement copy of mine was the the edited for television version that we had, and I don't know if they did that in the UK, but they couldn't show it on regular network television without taking out a lot of the swear words. And one scene that they took out completely was this Mr. Stay Puft is okay. He's a sailor. He's in New York. That whole scene just got taken out. And doggone it if it doesn't work better without it, because it goes straight from whatever the previous line was that they said, and it jumps straight to the flaming marshmallow man climbing the building. And without that laugh, it's like there's more drama, there's more tension, there's more fear for the characters without him suddenly making some loopy joke, you know. So that was interesting. But then they kept in Mother Puss Bucket, which struck me as odd that they take out Get Laid and leave in Mother Puss Bucket. So I don't know who was making those decisions.
And also, I remember that they also replaced the scenes with to make it more kid friendly and call it Wally Wick instead.
Yes. The power grid was shown off by Wally Wick here. That recently was shown on a channel here, and Wade got me a copy of it. I haven't been able to rip it or anything, but a couple of the scenes, including the Wally Wick line, were used in a broadcast in widescreen format. So the one we saw in '87 on ABC television was, you know, cropped, was what they call pan and scan, but a couple of those have finally shown up in widescreen. I would love to see that footage found and presented in a widescreen format on like a 40th anniversary or 35th anniversary Blu-ray release or something like that. So and the Fort Detmering scene I would love to see resurrected as well. That's one where I've actually talked to one of the actors in it. I haven't met him in person, but he was in Stripes, and he was on a show called Newhart. John Volstad is the actor's name, and he played the state trooper in the scenes where they arrive at the exterior of Fort Detmering to go bust the ghost that winds up being the dream ghost in the montage. So the scene that was truncated, I'd love to see that as a deleted scene. And they found a reel from it a couple of years back. I'm hoping that shows up on like a 35th anniversary Blu-ray or something. So just because when I said that's John Volstad, and I've talked to John Volstad and he said that's him, I had people that were like, well, we're not going to call you a liar, but kind of a reaction. So I'm hoping for vindication on that. And I told you guys that in 2012, that was John Volstad. So
2 favorite scenes now from the sequel.
From Ghostbusters 2. Okay. A lot of the scenes in that feel so much like they just were hitting the same beats as Ghostbusters 1.
Yeah.
But I know that if I was better prepared for this, I'd have smarter answers. But on the spot, a lot of the character interaction when all 4 guys are finally there, because they really paid Ernie short shrift and did not have him in enough scenes in the sequel. So I'm going to have to say, as overused as it was in the summer of '89, I'm going to say one of my 2 favorites will be the mood slime scene, where they've got the slime in the toaster on the pool table, and before they put it in the toaster when they take it out of the microwave. So right after the montage from Ghostbusters 2.
The Jackie Wilson,
say one more time.
The Jackie Wilson music.
Yeah, Jackie Wilson scene. Yeah, loves Jackie Wilson. So does it do Emmylou Harris? So that scene, and it would probably be something to do with the baby, because those are the only. And it might be the baby, or it might be something with Janosch, because those are like the standouts for me of moments that are different because they're not replaying a moment from the first film. So maybe the creepy Janosch when he comes to visit Dana and he's got the glowing eyes, that might be a standout moment. Or anything with I really think Bill Murray, and my dad who passed away just a couple of years ago, I remember him watching the scene where Bill Murray is talking to the baby, and he holds out his hand for the baby to shake, and the baby doesn't take it, and he's like, "It's all right, I understand," or something like that. He was like, how flexible of an actor do you have to be able to play the scene? No matter what the infant did, you had a line in my, we never get this many phone calls in an hour's time at my house. I swear. It's like Grand Central Station around here today. But yeah, so just to see an actor able to improvise and interact with a baby like that. So I just did an improv benefit last night for a local organization that they're child court-appointed advocates for adoption. And so we got to spend some time with those people last night and did a little improv, which I had not been doing a lot of since probably since my dad passed away, as a matter of fact, around that same time of the year. So we got to play and do some games. And at one point, we were like trying to keep it kid friendly. And we were doing a game at the end of the improv show called World's Worst. And we asked the audience for suggestions. What's the world's worst what? And we'll give you examples of it. And they'll say world's worst, movie star, world's worst zookeeper. And we're having to come up with all these little character moments. And this little kid, we're trying to keep it kid friendly. And this little kid says world's worst hooker. And we're all like, what? And then like the mom's like talking to me. She's like, no, he said cooker. And Stefan was like, yeah, the word for that is chef. But my wife was out in the audience, and she said like even the table next to her was like, the kid did not say cooker, the kid said hooker. So yeah, you have to be able to think on your feet, and that's why I love the setting that these guys all came from with their Second City training and Saturday Night Live training. I really think they were destined to break out and become famous because of their ability to, yes, we have the written page and we can do that, or we can go off book a little bit and everybody's going to shape this performance. And, I'll say this and then you say this, and then this scene becomes better. And it was very giving, very organic, very generous environment, especially on the first film. So I think that improv quality was in evidence on Ghostbusters 1, probably more scripted on Ghostbusters 2. They adhered to the script more, but still, I mean, they were making changes every morning before they filmed. They would get together with Ivan Reitman, they'd workshop the scene, and they, what if I say this and that and the other? So yeah, but I think probably they one of those Janos scenes or the baby scene or I don't know, that Statue of Liberty scene's pretty tight, even though it's a ripoff of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man scene. So it's pretty well done. So
mine would be the courtroom scene.
Courtroom, yeah.
Where they go just before they go back into business, and they put their packs on over the top of their business suits.
Right. That's who it was. I did meet one other Ghostbusters actor. Felix Silla is in that scene, and we met him back at the beginning of the year. He was in the Tweaky costume in Buck Rogers. He was Cousin It on the original Addams Family. He was an Ewok in Return of the Jedi. He's in the courtroom scene of Ghostbusters 2. He doesn't have any dialogue. But I think like one of the other actors, it might even be Mr. Fianella from Con Ed, like picks him up like a human shield as they're trying to get out of the room and everything. So yeah, we went to a convention, Brian Rogers and I and his wife and Zach, in Tupelo, Mississippi earlier this year, and we did the Courtroom Busters. We wore suits and put our Proton Packs on it, and we even put Exhibit A, Exhibit B tags on the backs of our Proton Packs, like we just taken them off the exhibit table. So yes, that's the other actor I've met. I forgot about Felix Silla.
2 in the box, ready to go. Yeah. You be fast and you be slow.
Maybe slow. I always loved that one from the time that it came out of the commercials. I even like had it in little red vinyl stick-on letters on the inside of my closet door. I had not thought about that in years. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, that was because I shot a video in that bedroom, because my mother still owns the same house, about filming the Real Ghostbusters teaser trailer that they did, about catching it on VHS when I was living in that bedroom, in between Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. And I did a tour of that closet, and like where you could see where certain toys had been on the shelves because I had written on the shelf. But I had forgotten that inside that closet door, with the leftover red vinyl stickers where I had put no handle on my slime blower that I'd made from 3-liter Pepsi bottles, I had taken the leftover letters and put 2 in the box, ready to go. We be fast and they be slow. Yeah, totally forgot that. That's so cool.
My second scene would be when, of course, they come down through the skylight after the Statue of Liberty, and Janos says to them, after he says, go away. And he says, "It's Vigo. You are like the buzzing of flies to him."
Yes.
And then suddenly he looks at the portrait of the picture, and he's not in there.
Oh, Johnny, did you back the wrong horse? Would you hose him, please?
Yeah. Why are my drippings with goo?
Yeah, there are so many good sound bites from Janos in that movie. And I finally got a Janos action figure, the Diamond Select Toys. They've done a Janos, and they've done a Vigo, and they've done Baby Oscar. And in the back of my brain, I want to find like a whole bunch of little tiny electric candles from dollhouses from that scale. And I want to do a Janos and Vigo. I don't think he's wearing the right. I don't think the action figure's wearing the right outfit for the scene where there's all the candles on the floor. But still, I think that would be cool. And knock wood, hopefully they'll make a Sigourney Weaver that's got a decent likeness from Ghostbusters 2. I didn't like the Diamond Select version of Zool that they did, so I took off her head and put a Ripley character made by NECA on the Diamond Select Toys Zool body. But yeah.
Are you collecting the Diamond Select Toys where you got to build the firehouse?
Yes, I've got the first. I haven't opened them yet. But I've got the first batch. I have everybody except the Real Ghostbusters 2 sets. So what I did on the first set was, when I finally had all the figures, I opened them all in a single day and built the diorama, the Gozer rooftop diorama.
I've got 2 pieces that I still need to get some more to actually make it. But
well, I've got some extras, so get with me. I might have what you're looking for. The Firehouse diorama, I haven't taken any of those parts out of the packages yet, but somebody had a great idea about some customs you could make with the Ghostbusters 2 figures. And then I saw where Wade had followed their recipe and made some of them. So now I've bought, like, I think 4 extra Winstons with the head on the pike. Not the diorama version, but just the single carded version. And I'm like, well, they didn't make the guys in their yellow slickers. I have all these heads on a pike, and I don't have the guys with their hard hats and their yellow slickers. So I've currently got plans to make, I think, 6 custom Ghostbusters 2 characters. So I've got enough figures to make, I think, Egon in the khaki outfit, Peter in the khaki outfit with the Ghostbusters 2 logo, Ray and Winston in the khaki outfit with the Ghostbusters logo. And then also Wade had this idea, and I got so mad. I'm like, we were shocked. We both walked into a Target at the same time. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do like the album cover from Ghostbusters 2, and do Ray and Winston in their gray outfits with their slime blowers. And I'm like, you keep costing me so much money with these great ideas. And he sent me a picture today where he had done the Winston in the gray outfit with the slime blower. So yeah, curse you, Wade Haddock. You keep making me buy more action figures. So.
Do you have a favorite Real Ghostbusters episode?
Favorite Real Ghostbusters episode? I'm gonna go with this is so hard. On the one hand, I like Citizen Ghost because it is the tie-in between the end of the movie and the beginning of the cartoon. But if I really am going to watch one over and over and over, it's going to be an episode called Knock Knock, which is, it's just I used to categorize them. I'm like, this episode had good writing but bad animation. This one had
Do
good
not open
animation
until
but bad writing.
doomsday.
Yes, exactly. Do not open until doomsday. Oh yeah. So, but it was like Knock Knock was like the pinnacle. It had great animation and great writing and great performances by the voice actors, and just like really memorable lines. And it really felt like a New York setting. And yeah, it was just like that one and Citizen Ghost and maybe When Halloween Was Forever. It might be my top three. But if I had to edge one out, I'd go with Knock Knock. So.
If I had to choose just one, I think it'd be Play Them Ragtime Blues.
Okay, right.
The different music and then they go back in time.
Their costumes keep changing and everything. Yeah, yeah. I like the music in that, but it was on my list of ones where I felt the animation could have been better. So, and then the one that I thought was just like the worst one was the Hole in the Wall Gang. It's like bad animation, bad writing. It's like they keep trying to make inside references to previous episodes of the cartoon. And I'm like, this is so inbred and recursive now because and it turned out to be written by the guy that had written the Trouble with Tribbles episode of Star Trek. Same guy wrote both of those. So I'm like, well, on the one hand, I really like the one thing he did, and on the other hand, I don't like the second thing he did. So not that he only did two things; he did lots of things. So.
What's your next video going to be?
I actually have a couple of pieces on order. One of them will be a video about when I do the unboxing. The story will be that I put in a make offer on this thing in October of 2017, and the guy wouldn't take it, and like refused and I made the same make offer like 9 times between October 2017 and October 2018. And the auction came up again a couple of days ago, and I put in my same exact make offer, and they accepted it and took it, and I've paid for it, and I'm waiting on it to arrive from Japan. And it's like, you could have saved me a year's worth of hassle if you had taken that offer when I made it a year ago. You know, it's like, why such? I guess I just wore them down. They got tired of relisting it. They got tired of nobody else wanting it. I don't know. And then I had a piece pop up today that was a specific prop. And I've got one that's kind of close and one that's kind of close. And I've tried a couple of times to get it, but this is the first time that I've seen one where the font and the lettering and everything are absolutely perfect. The only thing is it might be the wrong color. So I'm thinking theoretically I could scan it and reprint it in the color that I want. So that it might be the tool for me to make a movie accurate one with. But it's the closest I've seen yet. So, and I contacted the seller and I said, do you have another one of these? And he said, no, that's the only one I've got. So I asked him, did he have it in any other colors? He goes, no, they're all that color. So when those two things arrive, knock wood, those will be a couple of videos that I'm definitely planning. And beyond that, I don't know that I've got one idea that I had earlier this year, and then I got the unexpected, chance to do the Sniffer project and do the Trap project, thanks to Patrick. So after doing those, it was like, well,
that
I had something
so real.
Thank you. It was like Patrick's artistry was just beautiful on this. All I did was like reskin the painted plastic side details, and I put some very thin aluminum over them, and then I replaced all the resin parts with real world parts.
It is like you'll be able to actually catch a ghost with it.
That's the one thing. It's not hinged right. This is just a magnetic plate. Yeah. He wore it as a belt hanger and would keep his keys and his wallet in there when he was at events. So it would be
That's
a
useful.
big.
That's kind of useful.
It would be a big change to actually motorize that and have those open and have a light inside there.
Yeah.
It might be doable one day. I don't know. I might. I don't have, there's a pin in here that I've got that retains the cartridge and keeps it from coming out when I don't want it to. And I didn't pull that pin yet. I don't have a screwdriver here handy, or I'd do it right now. But one thing I could do would just be to build another cartridge and have one cartridge that goes in it when I want it on a belt, and have another cartridge that goes in it when I want the doors to open.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I learned a lot dismantling it and changing it and remaking it. And I could theoretically do another one at this point. But yeah,
I'm currently doing a sort of like a DVD Blu-ray overview series of my movie collection.
Yeah.
Because my channel is sort of based on like my movie collection. I've actually moved towards Ghostbusters more now, because that's kind of my favorite thing.
Oh yeah.
So I decided to carry on with just having the old general movie stuff added into it. But so I'm doing an overview series now of my movie collection. But when it comes to part 8, it's going to be my Ghostbusters memorabilia.
There you go. I'll look forward to seeing that one. Yeah, the project that I had in mind before I spent the whole summer doing those was that I want something else that I do is voiceover for industrial safety videos. And I thought, well, it would be kind of neat to take the Richard Mueller novelization of Ghostbusters. That's the American one. I know in England you had the Larry Milne novelization of Ghostbusters, and I've got a copy of that. But I just really am fond of that Richard Mueller novelization, and do it like read each chapter and edit it and do it as like a dramatic reading and do different voices for different characters and edit it all together. And then I thought I could actually wear the costume of the character I was playing, or have the prop that they have. It instead of it just being an audio recording, it would be like a video book. Does that make sense? So I thought that might be a fun way to put a lot of these props and things to use. So, but yeah, I recently bought another copy of the novel just because mine was so dog-eared and tattered. I'm like, well, that could then become the one that I use for my script, the one that's falling apart anyway. And maybe if I need to mark a line or color code something, I'll go ahead and mark it up. So
yeah, it'd be cool if you tried to do a Ghostbusters fan film.
I had an idea for that, and then we wrecked the car. So I actually had a script that I was working on, and because we didn't have a set that we could film on, I set most of the action in the back seat of the Ectomobile. Okay. It's like on their way from this location to this location, they're doing stuff in the back of the Ectomobile. And then 3 years ago today, we rolled that beauty. And we were in the avalanche, 2012 avalanche, that was towing the Ectomobile on a trailer, and it began to fishtail, and we rolled in the median, but I think the Ecto never rolled. And so a curious thing happened. It was the Ecto fishtailing that caused us to have the wreck, but it was also the Ecto's weight on the tow hitch. It completely torqued it around like if you've ever seen a fork get caught in a dishwasher and the metal just get twisted. That was what the tow hitch on his avalanche looked like. So it was putting pressure on that tow hitch as it stayed level as we were rolling. And I feel like, yes, it made us roll, but it also stopped us from rolling faster than we would have otherwise. So yeah. And then when everything came to a stop, the Ecto's straps broke, and it was flung off of the trailer sideways. So yeah,
sounds like
that's when most Ecto. Yeah, I even made the joke because he got another car body that he's been working on for 3 years, and we're very close to having an engine in it. It does not run yet, but it's actually a closer to the movie model. What we were in was a Pontiac. He's got a Cadillac body. It's closer to the movie vintage. It's older than the Pontiac was. So it's that much closer to being a better Ecto. And I dubbed them, just because it was easier when referring to them, as the Recto and the Resurrecto. So hopefully, eventually the Resurrecto will be back, and the Florence chapter of the Alabama Ghostbusters will be back in full force, hopefully one of these days. So knock wood.
I'll have to end the stream as it's getting on here now, and I think I got a bit of dinner cooking.
That's fine. That's fine. I've got to go soon and pick up Zach from school. So it's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
I'll just end this first, and then we can say goodbyes.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and my interview with Alex Newborn of the Alabama Ghostbusters. This was a lot of fun. But until my next video or live chat, guys, goodbye and take care for now.
Thanks for having me.